They say dreams aren't real, that the mind plays tricks in the dark, fabricating meaning out of nothing. But I'm here to tell you, some dreams aren't dreams at all. They're memories waiting to unfold. They're warnings you do anything to forget. My name is Adam, and something is haunting me. A boy, a child. I don't know what he is, not really. Not even now, I just know his name. David. It started sometime in August, just after I moved into my new apartment. Top floor, cozy enough, a little crooked and creaky just like most New York walk-ups, but it was mine, and I was excited. I spent my days working on comics and illustrations, my nights curled up with my cats and Netflix, a pretty normal life by all accounts, until I started dreaming of him. The first time it happened, I was lying in bed dreaming, I thought, when I woke into sleep paralysis. If you've never experienced it, imagine being fully aware of your body, your breath, your heart racing, but unable to move a single muscle. You're stuck in your skin, and worse, you're not alone. In the corner of my room, sitting in the green rocking chair by the window, was a boy. He looked wrong. Not in a grotesque horror movie way, but subtly, viscerally wrong. His head was misshapen, flattened and dented on one side, like it had been caved in. He just sat there, watching me, silent, still. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. I could barely breathe. Then, just as quickly as he'd come, he was gone. I woke up gasping, the morning light bleeding through the curtains as if nothing had ever happened. I chalked it up to stress, or maybe it was something I ate, but then it happened again. And again. In each dream, the boy came closer. At first, he just watched from the chair, but soon, he stood. Then he moved. Each time, he got nearer, as if pulled toward me by some invisible string that I couldn't cut. Then came the dream that changed everything. I was lying in bed, once more paralyzed when the boy appeared, not just to watch, but to speak. His voice didn't come from his mouth. It filled my head like an echo, bouncing inside of a locked box. You can ask me 2 questions. My name is David, he said. His voice was hollow. You may ask me 2 questions, but never ask a third or I will kill you. I still don't know how or why, but I believed him and I was terrified. Still, in the way that dreams seem to pull logic from fog, I spoke. Dear David, how did you die? I asked. He hesitated like he didn't want to remember. An accident in a store, he said at last. Dear David, what happened at the store? The dream shifted, and he responded. A shelf was pushed on me. It landed on my head. I died. Forgetting the 3rd question rule, I asked, Dear David, who pushed the shelf? He stared at me, but there was no answer. I suddenly knew with a bone-deep kind of panic that I'd broken the rules. I'd asked 3 questions. I tried to move on, I really did, but I knew with a gut-clenching certainty that it wasn't just a dream. Over the coming weeks, David started appearing while I was awake. At first, I didn't tell anybody. What was I supposed to say? Hey, I think a ghost with a crushed head is visiting me at night and giving me rules. Even writing it out now feels insane. But something had shifted, like the air in the apartment had changed. The dreams hadn't just haunted my sleep. They'd fractured the thin line between then and now. The first real sign that this wasn't just in my head came from my cats. Every night, like clockwork, They began gathering by the front door. Just before midnight, they'd sit there, completely alert, all facing the door. Sometimes they stared, sometimes they meowed, and sometimes they hissed. But nothing. No sound came from the hall, no footsteps, no neighbours. I checked the peephole and find nothing, until one night I looked, and I swear I saw movement. Just a quick shift in the distortion of the fisheye lens, low to the ground like someone was standing just outside of the frame. I flung open the door. Nothing. No footsteps, no one running down the stairs, just the usual dimly lit hallway, except on the floor, in front of my apartment, there was a dent. A small circular indentation like something heavy or someone had stood there. It wasn't there before. I know my floor. I started documenting everything, mostly on Twitter. I needed to get it out of me, make it real so I wouldn't feel insane. People actually responded. Some supportive, some skeptical, but something about talking about it made it worse. The dreams became more vivid, more frequent. In one, I was lying on the couch in the living room, still paralysed, and David emerged from the hallway and stood at the edge of the sofa watching me. Then he began to crawl up onto my chest. I could feel the weight of him. My lungs struggled under it. I remember in that moment, the rule echoed again in my mind. 2 questions, never a third. But I'd asked 3, and I broke the rule. In a moment of fearful confusion, I had asked a 3rd question. The next day, I bought a Polaroid camera, the old-fashioned kind with a film you shake and wait to develop. I figured if something was here, really here, maybe I could catch it. Not just shadows and feelings, but something real. I tested the camera out in the living room, took a photo of my TV, clear shot, one of the bookshelf, crisp and clean. Then I walked into the hallway and aimed at the same spot the cats kept staring at every night. Click. Wait. The photo was pitch black. No blur, no grain, just absolute void. I tried again. Same spot, same light, and this time I took a photo with my phone and the Polaroid side by side. The phone photo came out completely normal, but the Polaroid was black as coal. I tried taking a photo facing the hallway with the apartment behind me. It was normal. Only when the lens faced inward, toward that one part of the hallway, did it fail. People online suggested tricks, smudges, mechanical issues, but I tested everything. I took photos of the kitchen, the bathroom, the street outside, and all came out perfectly fine. Around this time, I decided to try something else. I downloaded a sleep tracking app on my phone. It had motion detection and would record sound if anything happened while I slept. The first few nights were mostly uneventful. Light shuffling, the occasional click or cat sound. Then, on a Thursday around 3 a.m, the recording captured something new. A loud snap, like an electrical pop, and a static hiss. No movement was detected, but something about the sound made my stomach drop. It didn't belong. And the next night, it only got worse. Another loud sound like a knock or a shuffle, followed by a dragging noise, long and drawn out, as if something had been pulled across the floor. I listened to it over and over. My cats hadn't moved, the motion alert didn't trigger, but something was there. It wasn't just the audio. That same week, I started finding things moved. The green rocking chair that had once sat in the corner of my room, the one from the dreams, had been moved to the living room weeks ago, away from the window. I just didn't want to see it when I slept anymore, but one morning, I woke up and it was back. facing the bed. I hadn't touched it. No one else had keys. I told myself I must have sleepwalked. I must have moved it without remembering, but I was lying to myself, and I knew it. That's the thing about lying to yourself. You know the truth. I started to dread falling asleep. I kept lights on, I kept incense burning, I read about warding spirits off, and some nights I didn't sleep at all. Yet, even with my eyes open, I felt him, waiting. It's hard to explain what it feels like to live in fear of something you can't see, can't prove. Every room in my apartment felt charged, like a static before a storm. But the real shift came when I moved David into a camera frame. Not intentionally, not at first. It began when I bought a home baby monitor. It was just a cheap one, audio and video, meant for keeping an eye on pets or kids, but I had this growing pit in my stomach that something was happening at night that I wasn't catching, and I needed to see it. So I set it up in my bedroom, camera aimed at my bed. I kept the monitor on in the living room while I tried to fall asleep. It gave me a sliver of control, or so I thought. The first night, the feed was static, a flicker here and there. I blamed Wi-Fi, but then came the second night. The monitor flicked on just after 2 a.m. My phone buzzed, motion detected. I sat up and rubbed my eyes. On the screen, the room looked completely normal, empty. But after about 30 seconds, something moved. The green rocking chair, it rocked. Just once. A single creak forward and back, even though there was no breeze, no reason. The chair settled. Then, more subtle, a small shape appeared in the far left corner of the frame. I leaned in, squinting at the feed. It looked like a head. Small and misshapen. I blinked and it was gone. I rewound the recording frame by frame. It was there for less than 2 seconds. A single frame caught it clearly. A child, slouched, head dented in on the left side, just standing, watching me sleep from the shadows. I sat frozen for minutes, hours maybe. I didn't go back to bed that night. After that, I placed salt lines at the door. I hung herbs. I burned sage. I didn't even believe in half of it, but I was desperate. People on Twitter offered their own theories. That I'd invited David by asking too many questions. That I'd opened a door. That he was feeding off of the attention. And that posting about him was giving him power. But I couldn't stop. It felt like if I kept everything on the inside, I would lose my mind. So I kept documenting. The next weekend, I left for a short trip. I thought maybe distance would help. I stayed with friends, tried to unplug, but something was already attached. The first night away, I woke up with a searing pain in my back. There were 3 thin welts trailing down from my shoulder blade. No explanation, no sharp edges on the bed, and no pets in the house. The second night, I dreamed of David again. He was standing at the foot of the bed in a strange room, not mine, not familiar, just standing there, watching. He smiled this time, not like a child smiles, like something pretending to be a child. And when I woke up, the baby monitor app had recorded another motion event back in my apartment, even though no one was home. I watched the video from the monitor feed remotely. The green chair was empty, but then, slowly, it began to rock again. No breeze, no movement anywhere else in the apartment, just that damn chair back and forth. When I got home, I felt it immediately. A heaviness in the apartment, like the air itself had settled, too thick to breathe. I started taking pictures almost compulsively, corners, mirrors, the window. There was nothing at first, until I decided to take a photo while lying in bed one night during another bout of sleep paralysis. The cats had been restless all evening. Max kept staring at the ceiling, ears twitching. Pepper sat by the door growling. I set my phone on burst mode, faced towards the foot of the bed, and just let it take a sequence of photos while I laid there. When I looked through them in the morning, I stopped breathing. In one frame, the room is empty. In the next, David, short, standing at the foot of my bed, just visible at the edge of the photo, partially illuminated by the nightlight. His head lolls slightly, and his eye sockets are dark. And in the next frame, he's closer. And in another, closer still. Then, he disappears. I posted them online. People thought they were doctored. I understood the skepticism, but I knew what I'd seen, what I'd felt. It wasn't a trick, and it wasn't a dream. David was real, and he was getting bolder. The images haunted me. Even in the daylight, I couldn't stop looking at them, even though they filled me with dread. Each one showed David a little bit closer. From across the room to the foot of the bed. From a shadow in the corner to something there, almost touching me. And then, the final photo in the burst, the one I stared at until my vision blurred, was nearly too much to process. The photo showed David slumped over my body, not standing, not watching, on me. His head was tilted at a grotesque angle, resting against mine. His body looked like it had gone limp, collapsing forward, but his face, God, his face still wore that same expressionless stare, eyes blank, like a doll. He was lying on top of me, and I hadn't felt it. I'd been asleep. No, paralyzed, trapped. This wasn't sleep paralysis anymore. This was something physical, something present. In the days that followed, I tried to keep rational. I tried to rationalize it, to pretend I was having a prolonged psychotic break, stress-induced hallucinations, a sleep disorder, maybe a gas leak, anything. But the photos were real. I had proof. The baby monitor footage was real. I had timestamps, recordings, images, and still, no one could tell me what to do about it. The paranormal investigators I contacted offered conflicting advice. Cleanse the apartment. Don't engage. Burn sage. Don't acknowledge him. Open communication. Shut it off completely. It didn't really matter what they said because I'd already broken the rule. I'd asked the third question. I hadn't even meant to. I just asked, who was it? And that was it. That was the third. That week I tried to distract myself with work. I didn't sleep much. I stayed out of the apartment as long as I could. Drank way too much coffee. My hands trembled all day. I still had the motion sensing camera set up in the living room. One night, without thinking, I checked the feed, just scrolling idly while trying not to panic. A new video had been logged, so I tapped it. What I saw made me drop the phone. Well, it started normally, the empty room, dim light, the green chair. Then, movement. David walked into frame. He didn't glide, he shuffled slowly, like his limbs were too heavy for his body, one foot dragging slightly behind the other, shoulders slouched, and his misshapen head hung low. I watched him cross the room, stop behind the chair, and then he turned, facing the camera directly. He stared for 5 seconds, then 10, still as stone. Then he fell, collapsed like a puppet with its strings cut, one moment upright, the next crumpled on the floor. I rewound it 12 times. It didn't make sense. The way he fell wasn't natural. It was like his body lost cohesion for a moment, like he stopped existing, mid-motion, and gravity swallowed the remains. I didn't sleep again that night. I didn't sleep the next night either. Then came the final set of photos. It was the weekend. I dozed off on the couch, fully dressed, phone still in hand. Somehow, I'd enabled burst mode again, perhaps accidentally, and it had taken a string of photos from my chest aimed upward. Most were boring. Ceiling, lamp, maybe a cattail, but then, in one frame, David stands behind the couch, next to my head. David stands beside the couch, next to my head. In the next, he's inches closer. Then again. And then again. Each frame, he inches forward, until he's leaning over my face, his head tilted, jaw slightly open, like he was studying me. And then, like the previous photo, his form began to collapse. Only this time it wasn't a fall. It was as if he was being sucked into me. The final photo in the series is almost unrecognisable. A blur, a smear of skin, hair, and something else. No features, just emotion and flesh and wrongness, like the image had captured something mid-possession, like a soul slipping between dimensions. I dropped the phone. I felt cold. And I understood. David wasn't outside anymore. He was in. I don't remember much after that night. People always ask what happened after the last photo, the one where David seemed to be collapsing into me. Honestly, I don't know, not clearly. I remember waking up the next morning with a dull ache behind my eyes, like a hangover without the drinking. My mouth was dry, my skin was cold. I felt heavy, like something had settled inside me overnight. The apartment was silent. Too silent. Not peaceful, sterile, like a room after surgery, like a grave before the soil is filled in. The cats were acting normally again. No more late night staring, no hissing or scratching at the door. It was like David had never existed, like they didn't remember him. But I did, and I didn't feel alone. I stopped posting updates for a while. Some people thought I'd moved on, others assumed I'd made it all up. But I hadn't moved on. I couldn't. The dreams stopped, yes, the knocking, the dragging noises, the shifting objects, gone. Even the green rocking chair stayed still, but I felt watched in a new way, like David had stopped pacing around me and instead had chosen to stay within. The worst part was the blank spots in my memory. There were full nights I couldn't account for. I'd wake up in different rooms, find apps open on my phone I didn't remember using, photos deleted from the gallery, strange file names in my video folder. Nothing sinister, just off. And sometimes I'd catch myself staring into a corner for no reason, forgetting how I'd gotten there. Like I was the one haunting the apartment now. Weeks passed. The photos, videos, and baby monitor feeds stopped producing anything unusual. I moved the chair out to the hallway and left it there. I deleted the sleep tracking apps and stopped checking the motion alerts. I didn't need to, because there was nothing left to find. David was finished. Or somewhere else. The internet quietened down too. People moved on. Theories came and went. Sleep paralysis, ARG, a publicity stunt, a curse, a trauma response, but I didn't care about proving it anymore. Not after the last set of photos. Not after the night I woke up and saw my phone on the floor, open to the camera app pointed at me with a timestamp from hours earlier. I didn't take that photo. I never even touched my phone that night, and yet, there it was. Just me, lying in bed, and the blur of something moving, barely visible across the edge of the frame, small, slumped, almost like someone was crawling out of view, and that was the last time I saw David. Or anything that could have been him. And just like that, it all stopped. No more dreams, no more sounds, no more David. But sometimes, just before I fall asleep, I get the feeling that something's watching from the inside, not behind me, inside me. I wonder, if I hadn't asked that third question, would he have gone away? Would he have stayed in the shadows, or had he always planned to end up here, inside this skin, watching through these eyes? People think the story ended, that the ghost just disappeared, that it was all an internet hoax or an overactive imagination. But I know better. David didn't leave. He just changed where he lives.